This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily as we count down the hours to dropping the puck on Winnipeg Jet training camp later on this week right here in Winnipeg. Prospects camp and the Young Stars tournament wrapped up yesterday. Dan Fink, our pal, the award-winning Dan Fink, broadcaster for the Manitoba Moose, was there. We're going to bring in Dan coming up in our first segment to get a little bit more intel on what went down out in Penticton, as well as some of the young men that will be challenging for jobs with the Winnipeg Jets and playing for the Manitoba Moose this year. So looking forward to having Finker on. And then the return of Ken Wiebe, back from his Italian vacation, will join us. Well, certainly we'll see how his trip was, but most importantly, we'll look ahead to training camp, get the latest on Cole Perfetti, and we'll talk some Nikolaj Ehlers as well, who spoke yesterday at the golf tournament, his first media availability since returning to Winnipeg after qualifying for the Olympics for his native Denmark. So we'll hear that coming up as well. But Ken Wiebe, and then Andrew Collier, our good friend, WST regular, and now the American Association Executive of the Year, as announced yesterday, is going to join us to talk about tonight's game, Championship Series, American Association title, the Miles Wolff Cup. The Goldeyes facing elimination down 2-0 after two excruciatingly close losses in Kane County. And it is looking like we are going to have a packed ballpark tonight, expecting potentially into standing room only, over 6,000 people at the ballpark. If you haven't got your tickets already, I would suggest get to goldeyes.com right now and grab some and get down there for the 6:30 start. Going to be a real fun game. And right off the top, we have to talk about the Monday Nighter as well. And I've been looking forward to this moment ever since that game finished last night. Before we do, though, tomorrow, CFL 110 returns right after Winnipeg Sports Talk with myself and Jeff Hamilton. CFL 110 brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Rollies Transfer and Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Canadian Club, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza and Royal Sports. Of course, the Winnipeg Goldeyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend. And we will get to a why not question of the day for the gang down at Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get Remis in here and get this show on the road. Shout out to everybody listening to Winnipeg Sports Talk on podcast. Thanks so much for making us a part of your routine. And a welcome to the crew with us live on YouTube today. Remis, what's good?
Hey, feeling good here. We are 1 day away from Jets training camp. We've got the roster and groups just released and the schedule. We've got players coming. Everyone's here speaking. The young stars wrapped up. They're all back. Very, very exciting time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll get to those training camp rosters and the schedule in just a minute. But I have to ask you, did you watch the Monday Nighter last night? In particular, the last 2 minutes or so, where the Eagles turned a 99.3% chance of winning into a loss at the hands of Mr. Monday Night, Kirk Cousins.
Yes, of course, tuned in for the end. And you recall I said you were crazy for taking Atlanta to win. But, the Eagles just gifted to them next-gen stats, as you just said. saying the Falcons had a 0.7% chance of winning with 1:56 left in the fourth quarter. I sat down. I'm like, well, this game's done. But, when a game's like done, you're like, well, should I bother watching the end or should I just keep it to the final whistle? And I was like, you know what? I'll just sit here and watch it. I don't know. I guess I had nothing else going on. And I watched them try to complete the pass to Saquon, and he dropped it. I'm like, oh, the clock stops. But then the most, lackluster display of defense, like Cousins, they didn't pressure him, and then they didn't cover anyone. So we just picked them apart on one leg, as I said yesterday, and it was so easy. It was the easiest comeback ever for Atlanta. That was, the third down was, it's just, a lot of bad decisions there, Huss, and it was improbable comeback. It was crazy.
Regular listeners will know, for instance, last year when the sky was falling in Edmonton after their loss in November to the Sharks that put them into the 32nd place in the league. They spent a lot of time listening to Edmonton Sports Talk and Tom Gazzola's post-game show. It's always fun, after a win in the Banjo Bowl to see what's going on Regina radio. Nothing compared to the 3 hours of Philadelphia sports radio that I listened to last night after the Monday Nighter and the press conferences, because Philly fans are out for blood. That was a game that they had won and probably should have won a couple times over, to be honest with you, Reem. And a guy that I cannot stand, Eagles coach Nick Sirianni, is in the crosshairs right now. And you recall last year, as the bottom fell out on the Eagles season, there was a lot of talk about, does Sirianni maintain that level of respect, with the players? How do they get along? Not particularly well, it seems. And, he's got two new coordinators in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. So he is essentially the CEO and, I guess, cheerleader, and at times looks like an overserved fan on the sidelines. But for Sirianni to not take the easy 3 points in the first quarter, those sure would have come in handy at the end of the game. And then after green lighting that play by Kellen Moore, if he's the one that called it, to throw the football, allowing a number of possibilities that could blow up in their face, which it did, to then decide to roll out his kicking unit and go from a one-score game to a one-score game and give Kirk Cousins the ball back, just simply head-scratching. And Sirianni, to me, Remo, seems like a guy that, at the blackjack table is going to 50% of the time do one thing in one situation and 50% of the time do the other. It really just seems like it's based on vibes, and there's no sort of rhyme nor reason to some of his decisions. And to just hand the ball back after gifting them an extra 45 seconds and then have Vic Fangio throw two safeties 40 yards down the field and just give them the first half of the period of the field that they needed to go, just set them up for disaster. And it almost seemed like it was imminent that Kirk Cousins was going to get it done. Great rope by London on that last play, and Cuz hit him. And that is a loss for the Eagles that is going to be tough to get over. And like I said earlier on, I was sort of fading the Eagles this year. I didn't know how they would come together under Sirianni running it back. I think we got our answer last night. And now, Remis, they go to New Orleans to take on the Saints, who have been the most high-octane team in the league this year, in a very, very tough place to play. You do wonder what the after effect of that loss and the way they lost it is going to be on the Eagles this season.
Not good, Huss. Just the way that it went down. A.J. Brown injured, having some other guys have to step up as receiver. But that's a tough loss. The best part about it was watching the Manning cast with Matt Ryan and the clips coming out of it, them watching this final drive saying, hey, you got to just run the ball here. They did have the play, but sometimes if you have the play, you don't execute it properly, and you would have ran out a minute. There's also some debate, like what's the point of kicking the field goal there after you miss the third down instead of just going for it on fourth down and trying to end the game there.
3 yards to win the game.
Yeah. So you instead of going up by 3, you go up by 6. So instead of needing a touchdown to win, you need a touchdown to win. Like the worst case is you're going to overtime. If you miss that, fourth down. So a couple questionable decisions there for the Eagles. Very entertaining. I did enjoy all the, post game and all the clips of the Manning cast. You're a crazy one listening to Eagles post game radio
so
after. So, it was a good night. Definitely an entertaining one last night. That's for sure.
I'll just say this. Every market has angry fans. Nobody does angry fan better than Philly fan. And that was quite a delight to listen to last night. So Atlanta gets a big win. Philly takes an unspeakably bad loss. Atlanta's got the Chiefs next week in prime time, and the Eagles go to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And it could be a season-saving win for Atlanta, too. I mean, if they were to lose to Kansas City, and they are underdogs at home, and they hadn't come back and won that game, you're looking at 0-3 with the potential of being 3 full games behind both the Saints and Tampa after 3 weeks. It's tough, but they survived. Love to see Kirk Cousins play the way that he did last night, and love to see Nick Sirianni have to own it. Not that he did after the game, but to feel that loss. All right, hey, while we're on football, just before we get to the Jets and Nikolaj Ehlers, Remo, couple transactions from the Bombers late yesterday, and no surprise about the additions of the quarterbacks. Those had been sort of rumored last week that both Jake Dolegala and Brian Scott were coming in to see what they could do for Winnipeg. Dolegala and Brian Scott both added to the practice roster. But Josh Johnson, who had been in most of the games so far this season, released from the practice roster to make room for Dolegala and Scott. So I guess the Josh Johnson era in Winnipeg is over. He was not really a factor in most of the games that he played, and pretty clearly the odd man out if they needed a roster spot.
Yeah, I think not a factor is accurate when it comes to Josh Johnson. He did have 18 catches for 138 yards on 10 targets, but they did make room, Huss, for Carrick Wheatfall, who, if you remember him earlier this season, he had that one pretty good game or some injuries, and then he was injured himself. So I wonder if he would be more of a factor. Kevin Sklercius in for Drew Waltarski, who's injured. Stanley Bryant back at left tackle. That was a good sign. Missed the last two, he missed the last 2 games there with injury. So, and I see some players coming back, and Kyrie Wilson and Michael Chris Ike both practicing, and no Adam Bighill, who's out long-term. Ed Tate with the update there on X with the Bombers. But yeah, the big news was them bringing in the 2 quarterbacks, announcing that yesterday, Dolegala and Scott.
Yeah, and we should mention Darren Granger in the mix as well. And he's going to be getting number 00, which is a very strange number for a quarterback. So listen, the entire quarterback situation is going to be something that we'll follow very closely. This is Zach Collaros' team, and it will, in all likelihood, go as far as Zach Collaros can take them. I do have a concern as to what happens if Zach is hurt. Do the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have someone that can go in and win a football game against a good team in the playoffs if Zach's not available? Hopefully we never have to cross that bridge, and Zach will go forward as the guy. But as they said, they have brought in some reinforcements to that position. Whether it's enough, I guess we will find out. But the best news is that Big Stanley Bryant's back in at left tackle for the Bombers in practice today. And you mentioned Carrick Wheatfall, who had that great start to the season and had been injured, taking Josh Johnson's spot. Let's move on over to the Jets. And again, we'll talk about the prospects tournament and with Dan Fink coming up in a few minutes. But Remo, a man that everyone had been waiting to hear from throughout the summer, is back in the peg, swung the sticks with his teammates yesterday at St. Chuck's for the Winnipeg Jets golf tourney. Nikolaj Ehlers back in town, and outside of Cole Perfetti and an update on his contract situation, I think this individual probably was the most anticipated interview of the pre-training camp portion.
Yeah, he's entering the final year of his contract. He just helped Denmark qualify for the Olympics. And, Nikolaj Ehlers is a player that, you want to see maybe a bit more from in terms of ice time. So a big year for him before he gets the new deal. And, would we see, or are we going to see us a last minute before the season starts extension like we saw with Scheifele and Hellebuyck after all summer? What are they going to do with these guys? Are they going to trade them? Are they going to sign them? Which one do you keep? And we've been doing this with Nikolaj Ehlers, saying, what are they going to do? Are they going to re-sign him? Does he want to re-sign here? If the Jets are in a playoff spot at the deadline, do they trade him? Do they let him go for nothing? So a lot of questions here up in the air because he's entering the last year of his contract. I think there's questions about Scott Arniel, some of his comments about Ehlers this summer, saying they want him and they need him here to be a big part of this team. So I was curious to hear what Nikolaj Ehlers had to say. The questions, Huss, are going to come about the contract. Everyone's wondering, are we going to see what day is Thanksgiving? We should look it up. Thanksgiving, 3 p.m., just about to start having dinner with your family. And then, boom, Jets press release comes out. Ehlers, is that gonna happen this year? I guess everyone's
I would
wondering.
be here for it. As I said, if it happens, I'll drive to Grand Forks and hit the Target.
Would
do
you?
Do another update. And if it happens on Monday afternoon of Thanksgiving, I will do an update from the produce section in Target, similar to the Scheifele and Hellebuyck reaction video last year. I'll have a little bit of time to get there, but I will do. It's a day off. I'm sure I'll have time. To do it. But yeah, listen, I mean, I think the first question is where Nikolaj Ehlers' head is at about the upcoming season and as it pertains to his contract. And again, I'm not sure how much we're going to get out of this in the public domain right off the bat. But is he keen to stay in Winnipeg? I mean, is he open to that? Is he thinking about going elsewhere next year? I mean, all of these things, need to be hashed out, most importantly, between the agent, the player, and the team. But certainly there's a lot of very interested fans as well. So Ehlers, listen, he did start off. Part of the reason why he came here later than many of the others is that he was trying to help his country, Denmark, qualify for the Olympics, which he did successfully, dominating when they needed him the most. And also talk about his health from last year. So here's Ehlers just opening on making the Olympics and where he's at.
It's more fun now that you can actually go to the Olympics than it was the first time. But playing in my hometown with the national team jersey on and playing for the Olympics was something I'm never going to forget. So it was pretty exciting.
When last we spoke with you, Nick, at the exit meetings, you said you had some physical things to get taken care of at the start of the offseason. Is all that shipshape and good to go now?
I don't think anyone's ever 100%, but I'm ready. I'm excited to get back and get going. So yeah, it'll be good.
All right, I don't know what to take from that. I don't know if anyone's ever 100%. Hopefully he'll be close to 100% when they get going. But listen, the main topic is where things are at with Nikolaj Ehlers' future, with this being the final year of his contract with the Winnipeg Jets. Here's what Ehlers had to say about entering this season in what amounts to a contract year.
I'm at the same point as I was at the exit meetings. I have nothing new to tell. There's obviously a reason I've been here for 9 years. But again, there's nothing new to tell.
What would you like to see happen? Let's put it that way then.
It's always a good question that I'm also going to wait with answering because like I said, this is not just for me. This is for the organization as well, and we'll see what happens.
Have you had conversations with your agent and Chevy over the summer?
Yes, but again, I know you guys are trying to get information out of me, but I literally have no information to give.
Shout out to John Liu for giving it the old college try. doesn't seem like a lot is coming out of old number 27 on where things are at contract-wise. I mean, listen, that's not going to change people's level of interest in Nikolaj Ehlers' future because of what a big part of this hockey team that he is, Reem, and certainly such a popular player with such a big part of the fan base. But I do appreciate the fact that he's not just going to show up at the golf tournament and kind of put all of his cards on the table.
I mean, he's played 9 years here with the Jets. Certainly a fan favorite. I thought maybe he'd put his cards on the table. Wouldn't that give us some more to talk about? I do like he's respectful. He knows that media there have a job to do, want to get some answers out of him, but he says no information, nothing new to see here. So
and I think to his defense, not that he needs defending, but I think a lot of what happens in this season with the new head coach and, personal success and team success, I think all of that's going to play into it. And I think this is probably going to be a topic that is mentioned on this show plenty over the course of the year. I mean, it's just almost inevitable. I mean, I think we all would have loved to have heard Nick say, listen, I've been a Jet here for a long time. And he did say, I've been here for a long time. There's a reason for that. And I think alluding to that he likes it here. But we didn't see here, oh, listen, I'm just waiting for a phone call from Chevy for a long-term extension. I want to finish my contract here. I mean, it's probably not a great negotiating play either from Ehlers' standpoint. So not a lot of information right now. More kicks the can from the media. Here's Ehlers on if anything will change for him going into the year with the uncertainty about his future.
Doesn't change anything for me. I'm going to go out playing the same way that I always do. I got teammates that I love playing with, that I love hanging out with. So it doesn't change anything for me.
All right, here's a little bit more on Ehlers. And listen, Scott Arniel, I think, is a really key figure in all of this. And I think it was noted certainly here on the program and by many of you in the chat and that tweet us that are listening on the podcast of Scott Arniel speaking about Nikolaj Ehlers shortly after he was named the new head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. And here's what Ehlers had to say about playing for Scott Arniel and some of the positive comments that Arniel said very publicly about how much the Jets need him this summer.
Well, I mean, obviously it's always nice to hear good things. In this league, you wanna be a difference maker in any way that you can, and I've been trying to do that and trying to work on my game as much as possible. But, at the end for me, it's about going out there playing with the other 25 guys and hopefully win some games. So I believe that this team is good enough to do that. So it's exciting.
All right, and here's a little bit more from Ehlers on the Arniel comments that, they need him in the lineup to be the team that they want to be.
One thing Scott said was, we need Nikolaj Ehlers. We want Nikolaj Ehlers. That's never a bad thing to hear as a player, is it?
No, that's what you want to hear. You obviously want to play for a team that wants you. And, like I said, I've been here for 9 years. And I've loved it. So, being here, being back with the guys, you haven't seen them for 4.5 months. It's been a fun 24 hours so far.
All right, just a little bit more from Ehlers. This is 5, Reem. Being one of the veteran players in the room with some younger players now challenging for playing time, potentially, not out of the question, to even be playing with Nick.
It is a little weird being one of the older guys now. You feel like it was a few years ago you were one of those guys coming in and you're just trying to make the team and all of that. But, I think now you're excited for these guys to come in because you know how it felt. You know that you can get a little nervous, maybe try to do a little too much, and all of these things. So you try to help those guys as much as possible. We also had young guys come in and do really well last year for a game or two. So it's exciting to see what we have coming. But yeah, you try to help out these young guys as much as possible.
All right, there's Ehlers on the being a veteran, being one of the old beards in the lineup. Not that he looks a day older this year than he has probably for the last 6 or 7. We got to give a shout out to John Liu. He continued to John Liu was in midseason form, trying to get any more information on this contract situation, and he just asked, would he potentially negotiate a deal mid-season if things go well under Scott Arniel?
Again, I know you're trying to get a lot of information. It's the 4th question. I don't have an answer for you. I'm going to go out and play hockey like I always do. That's what I'm here for. All the other stuff, like I said, I don't know what's going to happen, so I don't have an answer.
All right. Well, as I said, valiant effort from John, and Nick even saw some of the humor in that as well. And listen, I think we'll move on through training camp, see if it gets touched on or addressed at all. Obviously, Kevin Cheveldayoff will speak at some point, and we may get a very similar answer from Chevy as to what we just got from Nick. And we will wait to see what happens with his future. But right now, the focus is on training camp, beginning on Thursday at the Hockey for All Center. One other thing that was touched on with Nikolaj was his good friend Patrik Laine on the journey that he's been on from taking time away from the game last year in the NHL Player Assistance Program to an off-season move to the Montreal Canadiens. Here's what Nick had to say about his pal Patrik Laine.
I think it can get a little scary, though. When this guy. We've seen it in Winnipeg. When this guy is feeling good, when he is just out there playing hockey, it sucks. It's going to be on the other side now when you're on the other end of it. I'm proud of him. Everyone knows it's not easy to go through some things, and the things that he has been going through is it would hit anyone. So I love that guy. Still talk to him. To see him now play in Montreal is going to be pretty cool for him. It's a city that loves hockey. He loves hockey, so I think he's going to be doing pretty well there.
All right, so there's Nikolaj Ehlers, spoke to the media yesterday at St. Chuck's, I believe probably before the Jets tourney. And we'll hear more from Nikolaj Ehlers when business gets going coming up later on this week. We will be at the Hockey for All Center doing the show Friday for training camp, as well as a special show on Saturday after the Illegal Curve guys finish up. I'm assuming they're going to be down there as well. So make sure if you're at FanFest to come by and say hi to us for the program. Dan Fink's going to join us in just a couple of minutes. As we do that, I will reiterate CFL 110 tomorrow. Join us right after Winnipeg Sports Talk for the latest. Huge game between the Bombers and Elks this weekend. We'll be all over that in one of the most interesting and exciting playoff races we've had in a long, long time in the Canadian Football League as we get down to the short strokes. It's brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg, where the push is on. If you want to get your garage spotless, clean, and organized beyond belief before the snow flies, give Garage Living a call at 999-1234. Our pal Pat's been getting a lot of calls as soon as school's back. People are suddenly seeing all the kids' bikes, hockey, and football equipment. You name it, strewn all over the garage. Well, they've got an innovative solution called Slatwall. Dozens of hooks, baskets, and shelves. They clip into it to get everything off your floor. There's even a cool golf club caddy and tire racks to store those winter tires. And the cool thing is you can do as much or as little of it as you want to fit your budget. Don't miss the chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with Slatwall, as well as polyaspartic floor coating and made-in-Canada premium metal cabinetry for a total garage makeover. Check out their website at garageliving.com or call Pat Kanuga 204-999-1234 to book a free in-garage consultation or make an appointment to meet him at their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg. garages made for a living. We got to thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer, who've had quite the summer. They are the most trusted name in moving services here in Manitoba, and they've been doing it family-owned and operated for over 60 years. Guys, if you have a move planned at some point in the future, talk to the experts at Rolly's about booking your move and getting the white glove treatment from the experts that have been doing it now into their 7th decade. And they got a special deal for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners as well. Check out their amazing new website at rollies.com. Top right corner, request an estimate. When you're putting in when and where you're planning on moving and giving some details of what you'll be moving, check out that promo code box, put in WST. They'll give you a special rate on both moving services and moving supplies as a proud sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk. For your next move, make it Rolly's, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years. Find out more online and request an estimate today at rollies.com. Got to shout out our friends at Consolidated Supply as well. What a season they have had. Listen, it started off real wet this year. And when you think wet and irrigation and systems and solutions for irrigation, Consolidated is the spot to take care of all of that. But they have so much more. Working for so many years with the golf industry, they've become the leaders in artificial turf, indoor or outdoor. Of course, if you want that dream putting green in the backyard, they can help you out with that. They're also the club car dealer in Manitoba. If you want to look at tricked out golf carts or new and used golf carts, they've got all of that. But other great options for your property like hot tubs, outdoor kitchens, and of course, they are also the leaders in small engine parts and supply. Pop by and see them in person at Consolidated Supply, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East. You can also check them out online at their website at cte.ca. And just before we bring in Dan Fink, don't forget, as we change the seasons, you've had a great year boating, camping, hitting those ATVs, powered by Manitoba Battery, who has batteries for literally everything at the best prices in town. Now it's time to start, dare I say it, thinking about winter car batteries, truck batteries, and batteries that you'll be needing and relying on throughout the winter. When it comes to batteries, Manitoba Battery is the #1 spot where you can shop local, get the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, including free delivery with any purchase over $60 anywhere inside the perimeter. So pop by one of their stores on Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive, give them a call, or order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, fresh back from Penticton and the Young Stars Tournament, Dan Fink joins us now from the Hockey for All Center, getting ready for a big Jet training camp and, of course, Moose training camp right around the corner. Actually, I should say the award-winning Dan Fink joins us now. Congrats again on that. How are you, and how's the trip out west?
It was good. It was good. It's always beautiful getting a chance to get out to Penticton. I get to go kind of every 2 or 3 years, kind of depending on what the staffing situation like in any given summer. And you know what? Every year you go out there, you go, this is a very nice part of the world. Great spot to get everybody together. And it's just a fun weekend, too. Chance to catch up with some old friends, guys like Cam Moon, Brendan Batchelor out there. So it's pretty cool. And just getting everybody together. Everyone's in a good mood. Everyone's happy to be there. It's kind of that first day of school kind of feeling. All the young kids are excited to get their chance to put on that NHL sweater. Many for the first time, and overall just a great weekend of hockey. And you know what, nothing's too tense yet. That's for the next week or two to start to pick up.
Well, listen, and you know, I want to get to some of the players that were playing there that you got a chance to watch that'll be competing for spots in Jet Camp coming up. But from a Moose perspective, you have this Young Stars tournament, and Mark Morrison and the staff are all involved in it, and then there is a bit of a break as players, go to NHL camp before the Manitoba Moose open their camp later on. How important is that period of time for Mark and his staff in a limited amount of time with a bunch of games and one practice to sort of get to know a number of players that might be new additions to the Moose roster this year?
Yeah, I mean, if there was, I believe, on the entire Young Stars roster, 14 players that at least spent some time with the Moose, whether it was a couple of games or 3 at the end of the season, like for Connor Levis and for Colby Barlow, guys like that, or guys who had played on the Moose the past couple of seasons, like Henry Neekin and Daniel Torgerson, guys like that. So there's certainly some familiarity there. It's a kind of an older squad this year at the Young Stars tournament, but you know what, that opportunity to make those connections, and every year we talk about these guys coming in at the end of the season and then making the jump to pro to the next season. The players will talk about how valuable it was for them to get to see what the pro lifestyle was like and how they needed to equip themselves. But the coaches too will say that it's an opportunity for them to start to get to know some of these players, some of whom they won't see for a couple of seasons because they're in junior or what have you, or going to be heading off to different programs, things like that. But it gives them that opportunity to make those touch points. And so the next time that these players start to show up, whether it's in April with the Moose or next season, that bridge has already been made. And so they have that opportunity to build off a foundation that they set. So I don't know that it's as much about the X's and O's over that weekend, so much as it is about building those relationships and making those players feel more comfortable with the staff that they'll be dealing with when it's time to turn pro or come back play for the Moose, or you just get them settled in for main camp, because obviously it's a big step up from Young Stars to main camp that's coming this week.
Well, that is that's an important note. I did see a lot of hot takes on social media, but we've seen this game against the Edmonton Prospects. Let's throw these guys in the top 6 and whatnot. A lot of work left to be done by everybody. But let's focus in on 2 young men that made their NHL debut last year and are believed to be very much in the mix for challenging for roster spots. And that, of course, is Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov, who both starred with the Moose last year. You've seen a lot of these young men over the course of the last year plus. From someone that was so close to them throughout the year, when they came into camp this year, the rookie camp, and out there, do you notice a different level of confidence, expectation? I mean, what stood out to you both with Brad and Nikita on and off the ice as they get ready for the biggest opportunity and challenge of their hockey careers at NHL training camp next week?
I think it goes back to that comfort level that I was talking about with some of these young players, kind of building those relationships. Here's a couple of guys who, yes, Brad had those 10, 15 games that he played in his kind of first taste of AHL hockey and then went back to junior. Well, then he comes in last year. He has a season that gets him on the all-rookie team. He leads the Moose in scoring. And, of course, there's going to be confidence and just more comfort that comes along with them, and an opportunity to kind of step into a bit of a leadership role this past weekend, which I think is so valuable for some of these guys, even if maybe they aren't going to go on to be NHL captains someday, but giving them the opportunity to kind of carry the load both on and off the ice is such valuable experience. And then for Nikita Chibrikov, even more so. I mean, here's a guy coming in from Russia and so much change, at least for Brad Lambert. He spent time in Canada. It wasn't a complete shift for him. And he's been kind of living that life in the summers and things like that. So things very much changed for Nikita Chibrikov. He's learning English more. And you can see, I mean, I think at the rookie showcase, he was translating for Matvei Michkov. So they've got him doing translating duty now. So that's where his English is at. So you get these guys coming in, they're more comfortable, they're able to take on a leadership role with some of the other players. And I think you see that translate on the ice. They're confident out there. They know what they're about. They're not just trying to make themselves noticed, they're trying to push. And that's a great opportunity for those guys. I think that's what you tend to notice about these guys who have been at a couple of these rookie tournaments or have that AHL experience. Now, they know that they should be some of the better players in this tournament, and they go out there and they try to prove that.
You know, you mentioned Chibrikov doing that, translating at the rookie showcase. First of all, I thought it was really cool for him to get that nod to represent the Jets at that event. I think that's got to be a big confidence booster. But, I mean, it's just so impressive to think of him coming overseas last summer and really diving in, knowing it would be important for him to learn English and get better, to the point where he's a translator, Dan. I think that really speaks to just how committed Chibrikov has been in every way to try to give himself the best chance to not only fit in, but achieve his potential with the Winnipeg Jets and within this organization.
Well, I think with Nikita, the vision, the skill, the shot, all that stuff is impressive to watch. But one of his best talents may just be that he's an absolute gamer. He wants to win. He wants to do what it takes to reach the next level in his play. He wants to push the team. And that's where you see him mixing it up, getting feisty, throwing his body around. He's not the heaviest guy in the world, but man, he catches you in the right spot. It's going to hurt. That's just what he's about. He dedicates himself fully to what he's doing. And whether you don't really see that necessarily as a skill on the ice, but it's a skill nonetheless. And it's a very, very valuable one that some guys have to learn coming into pro, that, oh, this is the level I need to get. This is what I need to do every day. Well, if you come in with that already ingrained in just your personality, it's such a leg up. And for Nikita, you can see that every day. He's always pushing on the ice. He just goes at 110 miles an hour whenever he can. So seeing that just carry right over, it's good to see, and looking forward to seeing what he achieves this season.
As far as Brad Lambert goes, he probably will be the prospect with the most steam, if you will, heading in. Certainly seemed like he played very, very well on the ice, and was in a bit of a leadership role along with Dawson Barteau with the A on his jersey. I mean, you've seen a lot of Brad Lambert over the years. How did he look? He said he was 8 pounds heavier. Certainly from what I saw, Dan, it didn't affect his wheels at all. I mean, what did you think about what Brad Lambert did when he was in the roster in Penticton?
That's always the concern, right? You want some of these guys to get heavier so they're stronger on the puck, so they're able to protect it better, protect themselves better out on the ice, but there's such a fine line. And I think there's been a long history of players that have gone away, come back, oh, I put on this much weight. Well, now all of a sudden it kind of messes with their game. And there's been some examples of that where they have to go back the next offseason, go, I need to change some things with how I trained. They shed a little weight, they get a bit leaner, they kind of change up how that muscle is, and then they get back to their game. So it was great to see Brad just kind of carry on. He knows that part of his game is so important, the wheels, the speed. So it's good to see that maintained while putting on a little extra weight. It doesn't sound like a big number, but putting on 8 pounds of muscle over a few months is a lot of work. And it's great to see that he had that success over the offseason.
Yeah, well, he seems, I mean, another guy, speaking of, Chibrikov doing everything he can to put himself in the best place to succeed. It certainly seems like Lambert's done that, including accepting the invitation, going to that tournament again. Two young men that unfortunately are not eligible for the Moose this season because they're not old enough and are CHL players are Colby Barlow and Braden Yeager. Tell us about what you saw from them on the ice. And Yeager in particular, probably your first chance to really get to meet him, know him, see him interacting with his peers. A lot of excitement about him after the Rucker-McGroarty trade. What were your observations of two number one picks in the organization, Colby Barlow and the newcomer, Braden Yeager?
I think that with both of them, what strikes you is just how polished they are. I mean, when they speak with the media, when they're doing interviews with whether it's Jamie Thomas or folks coming in to chat with them from other media outlets, they're just so polished. And it really is amazing. You forget that these kids are 18, 19 years old, just with how they speak to the media and how they're able to break down what's happening on the ice. JT hasn't come out yet, but there'll be some interviews that come out over Jet Social in the next little while, speaking with Braden Yeager and the way he's able to kind of parse through everything and explain, because it's one thing to understand, but to be able to take those concepts and spit them around to somebody else, it's always impressive to listen to some of these guys, how they're able to break down the game. So I think that polish really stands out on the ice. Obviously, for Yeager, he can really move. He's agile. He's all over the puck. He wants the puck. He's got that great shot. And, of course, talking about great shots, you got Colby Barlow and watching him rip one-timers. I think I was sitting watching him just rip pucks in practice one day, and he's just one of those guys that you can just sit and watch do something kind of mundane, and that's practice one-timers, and it's entertaining because you watch a pass come in the skates, top corner. You watch a pass come about a foot in front of him, top corner. It's a little bit behind him, top corner. It doesn't seem to matter where that puck lands in the wheelhouse. He's always getting it in the sweet spots. So certainly some very, very talented youngsters that obviously have work to do on their games in various spots, and I think maybe this week is a great opportunity for them to learn where they need to work on their games, and they'll get the chance to work with the Jets coaches, to work with players like Mark Scheifele, and to really kind of hone in on those aspects of their game that they can improve over this year in junior.
Yeah, Jaeger just seemed dangerous every time he was on the ice. I mean, that second game that he played, I mean, could have had 4 or 5 goals, just, not getting in. And then, earlier on, certainly, seeing what he did back in the dub last year. I mean, a guy that, can score from a lot of different places. But in speaking to him, very, very focused on playing that two-way game, which I'm sure is music to the ears of the coaches. It was more than just those top prospects, though, that were there. Before I moved to the Blue Line, because I do want to ask you about Elias Salomonsson, there were a few Moose veterans that got into the mix. Nikkanen, Torgerson. Who else stood out amongst the forward group of maybe that are less familiar to people that didn't watch the Moose like a lot last year, but for players that you were quite familiar of that seem to have maybe put themselves in a position to take that next step this season?
Yeah, I mean, before I get kind of on to some of the Moose guys, I would say that Kevin He was very noticeable throughout, to the point that I kind of forgot that I was like, oh yeah, he was a second round pick, blah, blah, blah. Realizing that, oh no, wait, he's a 4th round pick. And not that
this year.
should. Yeah, exactly. And man, the guy can wheel around the ice. He's not afraid to get into it physically, and he had the opportunity to play with some of the top guys. And so that was a lot of fun to see him rip around the ice. So certainly an exciting tournament early on. It'll be interesting to see how he performs in his first NHL camp here coming up. But I mean, for some of the familiar Moose names, I mean, we saw Henry Nikkanen and Daniel Torgerson and both chip in on the score sheet. And in that third game, in the first game, in the first game, Torgerson had a pile of scoring chances that just didn't play out for him. At one point, he absolutely walked one of the defensemen that he was up against and just cut to the middle and let one go just over the top corners. So a couple of guys that you want to see take that next step. This is a big, big year for Daniel Torgerson and Henry Nikkanen coming in to their third season of their entry-level contracts, and you want to see them succeed. And I think both of them, after pretty solid rookie seasons, had areas that they really wanted to grow last season. They struggled a little bit at times. So I think they're going to really be looking to push the pace coming into this Jets camp and make their mark and really set themselves up for a strong season, wherever that may be, whether they push for a spot in that very, very muddy and messy battle for spots up in the depth roles in the forward group, or if it's with the Manitoba Moose. And he's a couple of guys that I think you want to see really take that next step in this season. And this third season sometimes is where you see that happen. And guys like Jansen Harkins, who that's probably one of the prime examples. A lot of people had probably written off by the time he got to his third season. You kind of only saw flashes from Harkins, and then all of a sudden he lights the world on fire in his third season of his entry-level contract. So those jumps are certainly not unheard of, and certainly love to see it for both those guys.
Well, for sure. And I mean, listen, I think guys that have been, maybe aren't first-round picks. Harkins is such a great example of a guy that, kind of goes into camp and, people aren't really talking a lot about him, and goes back to the Moose and all of a sudden plays his ass off, gets a call up and doesn't look back. And, that is very much on the table, I think, for a lot of players, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and maybe a little bit of good fortune too, as often happens. Tell us about Elias Salomonsson, who was back at camp and playing a big role on the right side, and maybe any other standouts that you saw from the 3 days in Penticton on the blue line.
Yeah, I think it took the defense a game or two to really get going. Of course, Salomonsson didn't play in that third game, but you know what, he's got that size, he's got those boots to get around. So he really does have that package that you love to see for a young defenseman, a good first pass and all that. So I think that it's an opportunity for him to kind of start getting settled in. I don't know that there was so much buzz about him coming out of the Young Stars last year. I don't know if he was quite at that level, but I think that's also because there was so much buzz around other guys as well, especially in the forward group that was really carrying the load for this team, for that Young Stars team. So for Elias, just an opportunity to kind of get settled in, and now an opportunity here to try and make his push as we get into camp. Again, it's going to be an exciting camp, Huss, I think. I don't know, and now maybe there isn't as much up for grabs as I think there is, but there's a lot of players that I think can make their mark, whether they're a more veteran player, whether a younger player pushing for spots. I think there's competition there, and I think that's exciting. You always want competition coming into camp, whether it's at the NHL level or the AHL level. For me, on the AHL side, if there's lots of competition at Jets camp, that makes me excited, because it means that even if some of those guys don't necessarily land those NHL spots, that they're still going to be pushing at the AHL level to try and supplant and push their way back up into the NHL. So it creates that constant state of internal competition that is so healthy for the organization.
Hey, for obvious reasons, we focus in on the forwards and the blue line a little bit more than the net because of a certain guy wearing number 37 and a 7-year extension. But the Jets have 2 talented young netminders, including DiVincentis, who's now turning pro and will play pro this year. I mean, how did things go for Milic and Dom?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't face a ton of rubber throughout that tournament. Jets youngsters weren't letting a ton of pucks their way, but I mean, they came out of that last game with the combined shutout, which is always nice to see. And Milic just looked poised as ever, tracking pucks through mazes of legs, that just playing his game, and certainly a treat for Drew McIntyre to get to work with those guys this weekend, and for DiVincentis, obviously a big year if he's going to be turning pro here, a chance to try and battle for spots, whether that's in the American Hockey League or if he spends time in Norfolk. We don't know. We'll figure it all out over the next few weeks. That's the joy of this next month or so. So definitely nice to see the Jets set up well, and plenty of depth there at that goaltending position.
Now, Finker, obviously main training camp begins on Thursday. What happens with the Moose staff? How involved will they be with training camp? And fill people in on the Moose schedule when things officially get going for the AHL team.
You're going to make me pull out my calendar here, Huss.
I thought you would have had this memorized already now that your summer's over.
I'm still coming off of Penticton time. So we got, I guess the Moose camp will start getting going right around that kind of last week of September into first week of October. So it calms down a little bit for the Moose. I'd have to check in with the coaching staff to see how involved they're going to be with Jets camp, but you can usually find them helping out with the multiple skates in a day, so usually they'll split up with some of the Jets coaches, things like that, and offer a hand, and that of course helps out some of those guys that may not be as comfortable with the Jets coaching staff to have them around to lend an ear and things like that. So certainly exciting. It's nice to have sometimes in the AHL this extra couple of weeks while the NHL teams get going. I can get caught up on all the things that I procrastinated on throughout the summer and get all set for our camp. So it's getting to be that time here, Huss. It's exciting times. Got FanFest coming up, and the true harbinger of the season to come. So it's really exciting to kind of get through Penticton, kind of get that buzz going again for hockey season. And I think what struck me walking in at one point to Canada Life Center when they put the ice in, it's just that smell of the ice. Yeah, it just has that unique smell in the air once the ice plant fires up, and it has that cool, fresh smell, and all of a sudden it's hockey season again, even though it feels like it just ended.
Yeah, well, no, you know how it is, working for the teams. The summer kind of closes up. You get to that Labor Day game between the Bombers and Riders. You come back on the other side of it. Kids are back in school. The NFL starts up, and boom, we're back at it. And we'll be doing it for the next 6.5 or 7 months. I can't wait for it.
Comes at you quick.
You got it. Dan, we'll look forward to seeing you in person. Maybe jump on with us for a bit of FanFest coming up on the weekend. Looking forward to being a part of that. We'll see you at the Hockey for All Center later on this week. Thanks for doing this, and all the best as we get ready for Moose training camp as well.
Well, thanks for having me on, and looking forward to seeing everybody out here for camp.
You bet. Take it easy. There is Daniel Fink on X. Daniel the Fink. The award-winning Daniel the Fink. We cannot forget that. A great broadcaster for the Manitoba Moose and a good friend of WST. We went through all of the Bomber news earlier on today on the program. We'll have a more in-depth kind of report coming out of practice in the next couple days on the show as the Bombers get ready for their big game on the weekend. Now, that game is at Edmonton. Princess Auto Stadium will be a little quiet. Princess Auto stores, though, not so much, because the Mega Smasher sale continues until September 22nd at Princess Auto. The best deals of the season on everything you need to get the job done around your shop, garage, home, or at work. Some incredible product promos, including in-store only 60-gallon Sanborn air compressor for $788, and you'll get a $101 Princess Auto gift card with that, in-store only, as well as the 3,400 PSI wet jet pressure washer for $899, and you'll get a $201 Princess Auto gift card in-store only. Other great deals, including 15-inch trailer tires for only $98. Visit your local Princess Auto store over the course of the next week, or you can shop online at megasmasher.ca to see all the incredible deals on this 2-week sale that goes through the 22nd of September. 2 locations for Princess Auto in Winnipeg, and of course online at princessauto.com, and the sale megasmasher.ca. Big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I'm sure they're shipping more Canadian Club into Winnipeg and Manitoba after Bomber fans pretty much drained them out at the Banjo Bowl a couple of weeks back. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You can grab it throughout Princess Auto Stadium at all events. You can also grab it at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And while you're at it, keep your eyes out for Canadian Club and ginger ale, pre-mixed cocktails in cans. Pick those up at Bomber games as well, and at your next stop to your local beer store. Gang, if you've got fencing or overhead door needs, you don't need to go any further than Wallace and Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists and experts in town since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors as well. Give them a call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lowson Crescent off of Kenniston. And, you know, Dan kind of said there is sort of a first day of school feel to the start of training camp and getting the season going on. Well, fall is here, guys. And if you're looking into your closet and realize that with the change of the season, you might need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street. Custom suits starting at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. If you're getting married or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to them about a 15% discount when the fellas get their suits for the big day at F Apparel. Pop by and see them at 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more online or make an appointment to come in for a fitting at that's E-P-H, apparel.com. All right. We're going to welcome back Ken Wiebe to the program. Remo, do you have that clip already, or are we going to do that later?
No, we should play this clip. Let me just make sure Ken is in. But yeah, Darren Dreger.
Yeah, Ken is good to go. And it sounds like as we bring Ken on, we've got a little update from Dreger on the Cole Perfetti situation. And here's just the last little bit from Insider Trading, the latest on Cole Perfetti's contract negotiations with the Winnipeg Jets, courtesy of TSN Hockey Insider Darren Dreger.
Situation with the Winnipeg Jets. Cole is feeling great, and that's huge for him and the Jets as an organization, given his history of injury. He has worked out hard all season long. They continue to work on the framework of what his next contract will look like. It's likely going to be a 2-year bridge. Again, there's a gap, but there's ongoing back and forth between those two sides.
So there's Darren Dreger saying it'll likely be a 2-year bridge. I may take the L on this one. I've sort of been holding out that it might be able to get a longer-term deal. But let's get to all the latest Jets news. And welcome back from his Italian voyage, none other than Ken Wiebe. Ken, how was the trip? Welcome back.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be with you. A tremendous trip, 18 days. Survived the 26-hour travel home yesterday. That was a bit of a grind. 3:30 wake up. Got back here at 10:30 p.m. But got a good night's sleep. Feeling refreshed. It was tremendous. It's a great country. First time there for me. Saw a lot of it. Rome, Amalfi Coast, Florence, Sorrento. It was just tremendous.
How many rounds? How many rounds?
Zero rounds.
What?
No golf. I was hoping at one point to maybe make it over to the Ryder Cup site, but
that's exactly what I have to Italy for sure. He's going to do
Marco
it.
Simone. I did punch it into the Google Maps, Huss, but the taxis and Ubers are not exactly cheap out there, so I couldn't make it happen, but had just a fantastic vacation. And stayed. The beauty of a 7-hour flight from Amsterdam is got caught up on the WST, got caught up on the 32 Thoughts during the podcasts on the flight. So
I thought you were going to say you got caught up in Amsterdam, and I was waiting to dive down that rabbit hole.
No, didn't spend any time there other than in the airport, Huss. So, it was a fun time. Like I said, the beauty of technology. Didn't watch a ton of sports, but stayed plugged in. Was able to catch some of the NFL action. Was able to catch the when I noticed Bowden Francis had the no going. Was able to plug in a little bit on the broadcast until things unraveled in the ninth. I didn't finish the game, but I didn't see the last of it. But I did see the breakup of the no by Lindor, and caught a little bit of DT there on the Bomber broadcasts. Was able to take in some of the both the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl. Caught pieces of both of those things. So certainly checked in on what was going on back home. But yeah, just tremendous to unplug. But now ready to attack the hockey season. Huss, feeling refreshed.
Yeah, it's go time. Your holidays are over. It's back to work.
Let's go. It's time to work.
One more quick Italy question, though.
Sure, buddy. Yep.
How was the food, and did you have pizza? And how would you compare the pizza in Italy, which we think of as an Italian dish, to what we get in North America? I'm interested in your thoughts on that, knowing your palate.
Yeah, I love to eat, Huss, and I am happy to report stepping on the scale did not gain any weight because of the amount of steps that we were able to fire up on the step counter, Huss, including just a remarkable hike at Cinque Terre, which was close to 30,000 kilometers, and I think 300 feet above sea level. Also got to the top of Mount Vesuvius. So, Huss, not many days you can say. Yeah, a bit of a drop there, hanging out in the Eternal City. No, so anyways, the food was tremendous. Huss, ate a lot of pasta. I do have to say, I'm not going to need a lot of bread in the next few weeks. I feel like I'm overflowing with the pasta and the bread, but the pizza was fantastic. Certainly, definitely a little bit different. A lot of different styles up in the home of pizza there, but enjoyed all of them. A lot of tremendous meals, and again, we're very blessed to have some great Italian food in this city. And I know I missed Burger Week, it looks like, but yeah, I'd certainly enjoyed all of the food experiences. That's for sure.
All right, let's get down to business. We won't even go down this, but I will mention it. Some woman took a run at your title yesterday, an Edmonton woman, 2 holes in one in the same round. Okay. Joining maybe the most exclusive club in golf. I will say that. There's probably less people that have done that are like multiple major winners or even major winners. So I'll just give you that. But let's start off with, before we get to camp,
Sure.
Listen, we just heard that clip from Darren Dreger. You've been kind of adamant. You kind of thought this made sense for a bridge deal. I guess my question is, if they were just going to bridge this thing, why the hell isn't it done yet? What are you hearing about this, and how quickly do you think we'll have some clarity on Cole's situation?
Sure, Hassan. Again, things can change with one phone call, as we always say, but I just think that if the gap is wide on a bridge deal, and again, I'm not saying the gap is wide, but I would just say this: the reason it's not done is because there's still a gap on the two sides, whether that's Perfetti's camp or the Jets, and the comparables I think are maybe where things are getting a little bit mushy, right? If you're Perfetti's camp, you're pointing immediately to Shane Pinto and saying, well, 3.95 is probably the minimum that you would like to go. And if you're the Jets, you're probably looking and saying, hey, well, Marty Necas's bridge deal a while back was only $3 million. So I just think that they're at the point where, again, all we've heard, Darren Dreger, Elliott, all of the insiders, it's an amicable negotiation, but if it was, if they were at a place where they could say yes, there would be a press release coming out. And that's why I've been saying for some time. And I don't think it's not amicable, but I just think that you have two sides that have kind of put the line in the sand. I think they're definitely going to come towards that middle of the sand eventually. But this is why, Huss, I mean, a couple months ago, I mentioned to you the possibility of missing out on parts of training camp. And again, it's not to say that it's I just think it's more of a normal thing than we might expect. And like I said, past examples, there's tons of them. And I don't just mean the Jacob Trouba example. Josh Morrissey missed part of training camp. Kyle Connor, Patrick Laine, to name a few. So I don't think this is going to stretch on until the end of September, early October. But I do think this was always a bit of a risk on both parties. I mean, us to remind folks, I mean, when you don't have arbitration rights, like Cole doesn't coming out of his ELC, the only real leverage you have as a player is to withhold your services, right? So that's where they're at. And I mean, and if you're the Jets, you're like, well, okay, well, you're going to withhold your services, but, Brad Lambert put on 8 pounds of muscle during training camp, just had a great Young Stars tournament. And by the way, the Jets just traded for Braden Yeager. So again, I'm not saying the Jets are planning to replace Cole Perfetti with Braden Yeager or Brad Lambert, but just both sides are looking at their leverage a little bit differently. Huss, is sort of how I view things from the outside. We know that neither side is really talking. I mean, Cole talked openly in Vegas. We know that. But at the same time, I mean, the fact that he was the representative, I think that bodes well for things moving forward. But I didn't think that it was I mean, I know some folks have wondered if there was something in the top drawer or maybe they would announce it at the golf tournament. Well, that's just not how things work. When there's a deal, it's going to be announced. They're not going to be waiting for the prime moment to do so. So eventually too, Huss, I mean, it's part of the business. The player loves it here. We know that the organization loves the player. They expect him to be part of the core group, but I just think that there's probably a difference of opinion. And Huss, you've been talking about it all week with people. I mean, the one side of the equation is that Perfetti's numbers per 60 put him in this other category. But those per 60 numbers are inflated by the fact that he had 11 healthy scratches. And, again, there's two sides of the coin, right? So, and again, Cole Perfetti is an excellent player. I expect him to get a deal done, and I expect him to be an impactful top 6 player for the Jets this year. They need him to be one. But I just think that, Huss, the reason why the contract is not done is that there's a big difference between being a, 38-point player and a 70-point player, which is what, Perfetti can project to be. But right now he was a 19 for 38 guy. And if you're the player and you're the agent, you're arguing saying, well, if he's on the top power play and he's getting a boost of 3 minutes a game, that 38 is going to easily become 50, if not 60. But if you're the Jets, you want to maybe see that production actually happen before you're paying into it. So again, and I'm with you. I mean, there's a lot of case to be made for a longer term deal, but I just think that the other thing, Huss, is that with 3 seasons under his belt, 2 of those seasons were season-ending injuries, and the games played totals were quite low, which also can inflate the per 60 numbers, right? Because what we saw last year from Cole, even though he had a great year and would have, in most circumstances eclipsed 20 goals, he also went 23 games without a goal and had 2 assists during that stretch. So, I mean, the big picture is that the player knows what he projects to be, and the Jets also know what he projects to be, but I just think that they want to see a little bit. Both sides want to see a little bit more about where things are going before they get to that long-term deal.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it would be nice not to have to deal with this again in 2 years.
Totally, and I totally get that.
But, I mean, if there isn't a long-term deal to be had right now, I think it's incumbent on both sides to figure it out because, I mean, the one thing that I think Perfetti is keen to do is get back out and compete and put last season behind him and get out there with his teammates. And the longer this does drag on, it does put him, potentially a little bit behind some of the others. And you make a great point. I mean, there are a lot of young players that are going to be coming in and will be more than happy to take advantage of 91 not being in the lineup in training camp scrimmages and potentially in preseason games if he's not there. Pagnotta just tweeted this out. The Jets have Cole Perfetti listed on their training camp roster despite not yet having a contract. I'm told by a team source there's no deal yet as of this minute. Winnipeg will likely keep Perfetti listed unless he doesn't report to camp, which officially opens tomorrow. Still time.
Yeah, and I mean, just one other quick thing, Huss. I mean, the other issue with Perfetti, and it's not just young players. If you're Cole Perfetti and you want to be on the first power play unit, well, what if you miss 2 weeks and Nino Niederreiter goes into that high slot position and all of a sudden the Jets power play is humming with Niederreiter there, right? So there's lots of things to consider, and we're all looking for the smallest of morsels, Huss, right? I mean, the Jets haven't played a game since the end of April. We're looking at September 17th here. So
I'm looking for a press release, not a morsel.
Okay.
I'm looking for a number of years. I'm looking for an AAV, and I'm looking for 91 on the ice on Thursday at the Hockey for All Center. That's where I'm at.
It's certainly going to be possible, Huss. But again, like I said, it's a patient type of scenario here that's required. So I expect
it's a patience off.
It is definitely a game of chicken and a patience off for sure. Again, I read all the stories coming out of Las Vegas. Luke Fox from Sportsnet, my old colleague, had a great sit down with Cole. Also, he talked a lot about the year. He loves playing in Canada. All of those things. So it's just a matter of this is the one part that us, a lot of people go through negotiations, whether it's you or I or other people. I mean, we've never been in the tax bracket of Cole Perfetti or others, but the problem for Perfetti is that his negotiation, I mean, both sides are keeping it out, but it becomes public because everybody wants to know, right? You want to know, I want to know, Cole wants to know, Kurt Overhart wants to know, Kevin Cheveldayoff wants to know, the entire fan base wants to know. So I expect this will get sorted out, in due time. And I think in a short amount of time, because, again, I understand that, we know how negotiations work. You have to stand firm. And if you don't stand firm, then you're going to feel like you left something on the table. So I expect that both sides understand the importance of Cole being in camp, being ready for game one. And, like Dreg said, I mean, the best news for Cole Perfetti, Huss, even though it was bad for the Jets to be out in 5 games and him to only appear in one of those games, he was training with Matt Nickel again, and I would imagine that Cole Perfetti is going to be the best version of himself, and he'll be the most impactful player that we've seen since he was drafted 10th overall. And, ultimately that's the best news for both Perfetti and for the Jets. But again, we all can't wait until, we saw the training camp roster come out. Immediately, we're wondering who's going to be with whom, right? And will it matter? Will it be young guys with veterans? Will it be all veterans? It's Scott Arniel's first training camp. So we don't have any clues as to where things are at. We know that a couple years back, the Jets rolled out Ehlers, Connor, and Scheifele. But are they going to roll that out again? We'll see soon enough, right? I mean, there haven't been enough hints provided, even though, like the dog that wants to go out for a walk. We've been tugging on the pant leg of Scott Arniel trying to get some answers, but, we'll see. And the beauty of it too, Huss, and we know this, and speaking of Perfetti, I mean, on day one, he was the second line center. But by game 4, things have changed. So as much as we want clarity right now, things are where they are, and they're going to be happening. And, I should say too, it's Cam Stewart and Kurt Overhart represent Perfetti, but they're in the same, it's KO Sports. So
KO, our old pal Kurt. We got another training camp situation with Kurt Overhart here in Winnipeg. Sound familiar?
Hey,
this is different.
Player works for the agent. Agent works for the player. Player ultimately decides.
That is true. Hey, outside of training camp though, but let's just go this way for 1 second, Ken, and let me ask you, like whatever the number is, it's going to be 3.5. It'll be 3.7. It's going to be somewhere probably between $4 million and 3.5. If that is what the Perfetti deal comes in, that actually does leave the Jets $2+ million in cap space moving forward. How do you think that affects the roster, what Kevin Cheveldayoff can or will be able to do as we get into the season? Or is that something that they just sort of take advantage of, accrue cap space, and see what happens closer to the deadline?
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna have to see what happens with Brad Lambert, but I mean, there's gonna be probably rookie bonuses in there that you got to account for also, I think.
Good
so.
point.
But yeah, I mean, for me right now, the number is going to be used by the Jets as accruing space towards the deadline. But again, you also have to wonder what the health status is and how many guys you're rolling with. I mean, we expect it probably to be a 23-man roster based on the fact that Heinola is waivers exempt. We probably think the Jets will probably carry 8 defense and 13 forwards, but there's tons of forwards in that battle for fourth line duty. So it's tough to tell, but the Jets know that if they have cap space to accrue, that will leave them some flexibility when it comes to the deadline. And again, we'll look at the roster the way it is right now. It would make sense if the Jets would be in the market for one of two things based on how things go, and they want to find out first who's the second line center. I would say right now, if I were guessing, and you and I are paid to look into the crystal ball and see what happens, but I would say the Jets right now probably would be looking for, second pairing defense help at the deadline if they have, some flexibility and money available to them. Now that is under the assumption that the Jets, find their second line solution with someone like Brad Lambert, who's had a great summer, as you and every guest that you've had on has mentioned. So, that's where I'm at today, but things can change an incredible amount over the duration. But I would say that unlike in years past when the Jets have been looking for a second line center, the fact that there's, center depth in the organization now includes Brad Lambert and Braden Yeager, two right shot guys who, project, one of them at least will project to be filling that void. I don't think the Jets are necessarily going to be in the, I'm going to use Sean Monahan's sweepstakes, but you could insert Paul Stastny, Kevin Hayes, or whatever name you want to come deadline time. Might they need a winger like they look for in Tyler Toffoli? I mean, that's entirely possible. It'll depend on how things are unfolding, but, based on what's happening, I would say that if the Jets are looking for a rental at the deadline, Huss, it's much more likely to be a defenseman they'll be in the market for right now. But I say rental because the same thing I just mentioned about Lambert and Yeager, Huss, you and I are on the Solomonson bandwagon from the beginning. Because Solomonson is coming in, that's why I think it's more likely to be a rental they'd be looking for at the deadline. But again, we know the Jets enjoy term, and if they could get someone with term, they would look at that. But we also know that Solomonson is someone that, again, we've talked about this for months. My stance hasn't changed. I think Solomonson needs, the majority of the year in the American Hockey League with the Manitoba Moose. But, if he blows the doors off, I mean, could he be under consideration before that? Of course he could. But I just think that based on the history of a number of players, and I know you mentioned Josh Morrissey as the example, Huss, I mean, we got to still remember this is still the, age 20 season for Solomonson, the 2021 season. And I mean, Josh needed a full year with the Moose before he became an NHL regular. So again, I'm not saying Solomonson can't do it. And Huss, I don't think there's anybody in this, community that's higher on the potential of Solomonson than I am. But I just think that it's having covered the American League for 10 years, even with the fact that he's played with men and plays with an edge and is physical and all those things, it would be difficult for him to supplant some of the people that are ahead of him on the depth chart. And Huss, I mean, we haven't even really talked about Hayden Fleury at all this summer.
Well, listen,
this is another guy that's
a
first-round pick. I mean, with NHL experience.
Listen, let me ask you this, because you mentioned you think the Jets will carry 8 defensemen.
Yeah.
So Morrissey, DeMello, Pionk, Sandberg, Miller, Villy, Stanley is 7.
Right.
Who's
so
8?
I could be wrong. I mean,
is there a guy that you think? I mean, listen, Elias could be a guy, but it doesn't make sense for him to be an extra.
No. He's not going to be the 8th. No,
exactly. That is my point.
So the 8th is either Fleury or Coughlin for me. So if they plan to go 8, that's what they'll do. And again, as we're talking out loud, given Rasmus Kapari's situation, I mean, Mike and I are working on the training camp preview. I mean, he just sent me a list of like the players that are in a lot of people talking about Chibrikov, and for good reason, coming out of the young stars. But Chibrakov's going to have to jump over, Mason Shaw, Jared Anderson, Dolan, like a lot of guys, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby. And again, I'm not saying he can't do it, but there's a lot of people he's going to have to jump over in order to take work, because Huss on the fourth line last year, Nemestikov, Barron, and potentially Iafallo, these guys are all double-digit NHL scorers. So to me, I love the way that Chibrakov plays, Huss. I love how he played in Penticton, even though I didn't watch the games. The fact that he was in the middle of all scrums doesn't surprise me one bit. But at the same time, I think they're very similar to Solomonson. And again, I understand that people want there to be a turnover in the roster and all those things, but Chibrakov, to me, will benefit more, Huss, in the long run by playing top 6 minutes in the American Hockey League and continuing to work on his skating, Huss, because what were we talking about the series against the Avalanche? The Jets weren't fast enough. The Avalanche are one of the fastest teams in the NHL. And again, Chibrakov has a lot of great skills that he's bringing to the table. He's not a burner. So the Jets have a few players already in their top 6 that, wouldn't be under the, Kyle Connor, Nikolaj Ehlers speed burst category. So I just think it's important that, again, it's not a race to get there. It's once they get there, can they be impactful players? So, I mean, if Nikita, and you've been talking about this all week, and I applaud you for mentioning how good a season Mason Appleton actually had. And Huss, I want to just expand on that. The best year that Brandon Tanev had with the Jets, he had 14 goals and then cashed in with that 6-year deal with the Penguins. Mason Appleton had 14 goals last year, right? So I understand fans see Chibrakov scoring in game 82 and think, oh man, well, this guy's obviously going to be able to score more goals than Mason Appleton. I mean, Mason Appleton was a highly productive American Hockey League player. So it just doesn't automatically happen, even though Chibrakov, even right now, may be a little bit more of a natural goal scorer, but he doesn't check the way that Appleton does. He's not nearly as good a player defensively, and that's why you're not rolling out Chibrakov against Connor McDavid, Huss, at 20 years old or 21 years old. So again, I'm not here to say that young players aren't going to be in the mix. They're in the conversation, but there's a reason why some of these other players have had as much ice time as they've had with the Jets. Now, again, things could change. You've talked about this all week long as well. The beauty of this training camp, we don't know how Scott Arniel is going to run things. Does Scott Arniel want to see Nino Niederreiter in the top 6 and give Morgan Barron a shot on the third line? Would he want to see Braden Yeager potentially play alongside Adam Lowry and either Barron or Niederreiter or someone like that? I don't know, but that's why we're going to be looking with such keen interest when the Jets get onto the ice on Thursday. But I'm just here to say, as much as I applaud the approach that the Jets are taking, when I look at the players the Jets are bringing back, Huss, I don't see a lot of youth being inserted into the lineup this year for the Jets. Outside of Lambert potentially on that second line, where are the openings? I don't see an opening for Chibrakov to play ahead of Morgan Barron, who, again, is a double-digit goal scorer, who I think has the potential to be a 15-plus goal scorer. Morgan Barron's, 4 or 5 years ahead in the process over a guy like Chibrakov. So while I expect Chibrakov to be in the mix maybe as early as next year, and again, Huss, Colby Barlow had a very strong Young Stars tournament, set up the overtime winner, all those things. I just don't see a spot for Colby Barlow right now with the Jets until at least next year, and then he might even need some time in the American League. So again, I'm not downplaying anything that Kevin Cheveldayoff said about if you're a young player, you're excited about the opportunity. I think there's some opportunity, but I don't think the Jets are rolling with 4 rookies in their lineup this year.
Opportunities also made. Oh, 4 rookies, no.
Outside of Lambert, who's, and I guess you can consider Hanel a rookie, but who else is in the mix for a job?
Well, I mean,
a full-time job.
Well, opening day roster with everybody healthy?
Right.
Probably not. And this is why I say opportunity is in a lot of ways something that you have a big role in creating. Like, none of these guys are just going to be handed the spot. Don't worry, we'll see October 9th in Edmonton. You're on the third line or you're on the fourth line. I mean, to your point, it doesn't work that way. But I think a player like Chibrakov in particular, if he comes into camp and stands out, does all the things that he's been doing well in the American Hockey League and he did in his NHL debut, and can maybe add in some little bit of offense, show some real bite to his game, I think he has the opportunity to make some tough decisions for the team. And then the other side of it, Ken, and Josh Morrissey is a perfect example. Morrissey was destined for the Moose. And then there was an injury on the blue line. And then he got into the lineup and he played so damn well he never looked back. And, you know, for a young player, you have to realize that that opportunity or that chance may not necessarily come in game one of the regular season. But right now, these next 2.5 weeks is your chance to come in, put your best foot forward, to raise your stock in the eyes of the heavy hitters, the shot callers, the decision makers that, you know, in a lot of ways have your future at stake, and realize that if it doesn't happen for October 9th, something can happen in a week, 2 weeks, or 3 months where you get that chance and you got to be ready and you got to make the most of it.
Absolutely correct, Huss. And that's the beauty of training camp. But I just mean that things change quickly, right? I mean, Heinola made the team last year. He made the opening night lineup. How many NHL games did he play last year, Huss? I got him down for 0. Parker Ford was a guy that we were impressed by in camp, right? Called up at the end of the year, still hasn't played his first NHL game. So, but that's not a deterrent, and that's not to downplay anything. You're 100% right. If you're Chibrikov, of course you're going to be disappointed if you don't make the team, but go out and be the best forward on the Manitoba Moose and be the guy who gets the first call up when that opportunity arises.
Do what Jansen Harkins did.
Absolutely, Huss. That's a unbelievably great example. My point to you being, I expect Chibrikov to turn heads in training camp, but do I expect the Jets to place, one of their contracted forwards on a one-way on waivers to make room for Nikita Chibrikov right now? No, I don't. But if he forces them into that kind of a decision, that'll be a great, happening for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I do wonder, Ken, if, and again, let's just use Chibrikov for an example, but I mean, I think you could add, there's a number of players that could potentially qualify for this. I mean, even some of the guys like Anderson Dolan or players that came in that had signed, if they come in and have a great camp and Arneal is like, listen, I want this guy in the lineup. October 9th, I want him in my top 12 that maybe is not of this group. Do you think there's a possibility that one of the veterans might be moved in training camp before the start of the season? I mean, you mentioned a guy like Appleton. Appleton coming off a career season probably has as much value as he's ever had in his career. Alex Iafallo's got a big cap hit that might complicate it somewhat, but he's in a contract year. There's not a lot of, you're not taking on multiple years after this, and there could be some demand somewhere. Do you think that is in the realm of possibility that, a young player forces his way into the lineup and actually forces Cheveldayoff to make a move that they maybe weren't anticipating?
Yeah, Huss, I mean, I think it's much more likely that someone like Mason Shaw forces his way into the lineup than Nikita Chibrikov. And again, I'm a fan of Chibrikov, the player. I just think that he would benefit from top 6 minutes, and I don't see any scenario outside, even with like 4 top 6 forwards getting hurt. Like, he's still behind. Nino Niederreiter is a 8-time 20-goal scorer. If the Jets have an opening in the top 6, it's going to go to Niederreiter because that's the kind of player that Chibrikov wants to become. And Huss, I would also say this, like in years past when the Jets played their fourth line 6 minutes a night, then you and I would be having this conversation about Chibrikov. Right now, the way it's laid out without knowing what Scott Arneal is going to do, the fourth line could be Baron Nemesnikov and Iafallo. Iafallo scored close to 20 goals in the NHL. I just don't see that. I don't see Chibrikov today being ahead of Alex Iafallo because he doesn't kill penalties. He doesn't skate the way that Iafallo does. So that's not to say he can't grow into an impactful player, because I think he will. I just don't think – I think the only way the fourth line changes, and I don't see it being Chibrikov, is if they want someone like Mason Shaw, who is a bit of a disruptor, a physical force, a presence. I could see him being on that fourth line. And again, if there are injuries, of course Chibrikov could work himself into that discussion. But I just think that where he's at in his development and based on his skill set, I think it's more likely for him to be with the Manitoba Moose. Now, again, that's not to say don't try hard at training camp, because of course you need to show your best. Show that game 82 wasn't just a, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't just a audition against, a bunch of other AHL players, because he is at a place where he needs to be a dominant force in the American League, and then he's going to be in the discussion and show off his skill set. But to me, Huss, I just don't see a lot of openings with the Jets outside of what we expect to see on the Jets' third pairing and the second line center thing sorting itself out with, again, and I've come around on this, and I love the season that Brad Lambert had. I can't wait to see him in games. I think that right now, if I would have said before that it was going to be someone other than Lambert that had the inside track, I think that Lambert has the inside track clearly for that job. And I think that, based on the summer that he's had with Gary Roberts, I have a hard time imagining someone knocking him out of the job. And, again, I had asked Scott Arniel about this, 4 or 6 weeks ago. And at that time, it sounded like Nemesnikov was the inside track on having the job, and he still might have it. But for a team that needs to incorporate some ELC players, I think that Brad Lambert has the inside track on the job. And I think that Brad Lambert, he wants to be in the Wyatt Johnston kind of conversation in terms of being under consideration as, a top rookie in the NHL. And if that happens, that's a massive development for the Jets here. If they don't need to use any resources on the second line center job because they have internal candidates that can handle the job, not just today, but after the deadline happens.
Well, and you know what? And to your point, to use a Dallas Stars reference, if Brad Lambert wants to be the Wyatt Johnston, a player like a Chibrikov or whoever that is sent to the American Hockey League,
Stankoven all day long,
to be the Logan
or
Stankoven.
Maverick Bork.
Except he didn't play last year.
Well, not a ton, but he was still the MVP of the American League. So if I'm Chibrikov,
no, I just mean that
I want to be one of those two guys. The reason I bring up
Stankoven is that he played his ass off and he was so damn good they couldn't keep him down anymore. And then they brought him up and he started to produce and he played with them through the playoffs. It certainly is intriguing, and I think there'll be a ton of focus on Lambert. I'll have a ton of focus on Salmonson on the blue line, but there's going to be some new faces. There'll be some younger players, and much like Harkins, and I bring up Harkins again because I think back to our shows through that training camp, through everything. His name was not mentioned once by literally anybody throughout that entire period. He came back and literally tore the American League apart in November and then got called up and was a player for the rest of the year. It didn't end up turning into a long-term spot with the team, but, he earned himself enough notoriety, enough experience and game experience that he ended up being attractive to another team and getting that chance. So it's all getting going in a couple days down at the Hockey for All Center. Cannot wait for it. And it'll be good to see you and the fellas back at the rink. And listen, we get right into it, Ken, with a couple days and then boom, Fan Fest and the first preseason game on Saturday night, which I imagine will feature plenty of young talent if people are thinking about getting out to a game.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And just one other quick thought here, Hassan. And the other battle in training camp that we'll be all watching is the backup goalie job, right? But even with that, so there's 6 preseason games, Huss. Connor Hellebuck is getting 2 of them for sure. And if he wants a third, he's probably getting a third. So if you're Capo Kakinen or Eric Comrie, you're only getting 1 or 2 starts max, right?
Where is the Wiebe meter? Where is the current Wiebe meter on the number 2 goalie behind Hellebuck right now as we approach camp?
Yeah, I know that Comrie has the familiarity, and his last year here with the Jets before he signed the 2-year deal was excellent. His numbers were, quite similar to what Laurent Brossoit posted when he was the best backup in the NHL last year. But I would say right now I have Kakinen slightly ahead, percentage points
60,
ahead.
60-40 sort of thing?
I would even say 55-45, but again, I think that Kakinen is a guy, Huss, and we had Kevin Woodley on the Kenny and Rennie show on July 1st when the signing was made. Again, we know how much the Jets value Comrie, and you talked about the vibes element and how he's tight with so many players. Kakinen is a guy who, he's a bigger Finnish goalie. He's athletic. He's never really had the benefit of playing in front of a really solid defensive group. So I think that the Jets believe that if you can get Kähkönen with Wade Flaherty and playing with a little bit more structure in front of him, the way the Jets played when they won the Jennings Trophy, I think that there's some serious potential there for him to take off. I mean, again, you can look at the sample size of New Jersey, and the numbers were great. But again, it's a 6-game sample. So, and we know that goalie is voodoo, outside of the upper echelon guys. So, I just think that Kähkönen probably has a slight edge right now. But I mean, Comrie's coming in with a ton to prove us. We know this. He cashed in on as a free agent. He had the 2 years. There were flashes of brilliance in there. We know he's going to play his behind off no matter whether he's with the Jets or with the Moose. Or again, Eric Comrie doesn't need to hear this, but he could be appealing to another NHL team if there's an injury. So there's no guarantee he gets through waivers. I mean, we saw the odyssey that he had a couple of years ago, and if Comrie plays the way that he can, maybe he forces himself into, potentially stealing the backup job or winning the backup job, let's say.
The one thing I wonder about Comrie, and this is sort of a blessing and a curse, I do wonder if just how great of a player, a teammate, a partner he is in net doesn't make him a guy that is more attractive to, like, if they're not going to be playing very much, what can Eric Comrie do for a Milic in, like, I don't know a lot about Kähkönen. Yes. I don't know a lot about Kähkönen, but Kähkönen, I should say, but I will just say that on the surface, if it was 50-50 and you're confident both guys can do the job playing whenever Connor Hellebuyck doesn't go, but you can have the benefit of having Eric Comrie as a bit of a mentor of a guy that's been there for so much, and we know the sort of person that he is, if that might actually work against him when it comes to, a battle for that spot in the NHL, which is obviously where everybody wants to be. He is on a 1-year deal. He's going to get paid either way. But, and I thought it was interesting that both were one-way deals, in that if they're carrying 2 goalies, someone's getting a big ticket to play with the Manitoba Moose. I did sort of wonder if that's sort of where they thought Eric would be, to not only be a guy that they could call up if they needed, but also be someone that could be, a great mentor for a young goalie with Manitoba.
Yeah, for sure, Hassan. And the Moose have always valued that part of the relationship, right? You think back to even when Wade Flaherty was sharing the crease, I think, in the time that he was there, he was such a great mentor, but he was also the number one guy. But the Moose have always kind of liked having a partner to share the load, especially like you said, the mentorship role. But Comrie was signed to compete for the number 2 job, and again, if he ends up being the mentor, that's what he'll be. And same for a guy like Kähkönen, he would be a good mentor also. But yeah, it's impossible to not look at it and think Milic, Comrie, both a little bit undersized goaltenders, Western League guys, played in the World Junior. They got a lot of things in common. I think he would be a perfect mentor, but Comrie signed here with the intention of trying to be with the Jets also. So I don't think the decision will be made any other way other than who is playing better at the time. And Huss, we know this. The Jets need 20 to 24 starts out of their backup, and that's 40 to 48 points. So if you want to be a playoff team, you have to be able to get quality starts from your backup, because if you don't, you're going to be below the playoff line. So that's what it's going to come down to ultimately in that battle as well. But like I said, there's only maybe 2 starts available, right? If you're that backup guy. So there's not a lot of time to distinguish yourself. And again, we also know this from when we talk about the Bombers all the time. Practice time is important in these situations as well, especially if in that goaltender situation.
I've changed my mind about the goalie. I think we don't need 25. I think we need 12 starts from a backup, giving Hellebuyck 70. I think the reason why he wasn't at his best in the playoffs is that he didn't play enough. He's built different.
Marty Brodeur style.
Get him in.
Archer's Urbe style.
Yeah,
okay,
79 of 82.
I'm taking the under on the Coolbet line on that one.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you on that. Hey, pal, I'm glad you had a great trip. Time to get back to work. Can't wait for all of your coverage in the Winnipeg Free Press over the course of the next couple of weeks. And we'll see you down at the Hockey for All Center in a couple days.
Yeah, always good to see you. And Huss, we got to get that golf game in before the year's out. We still haven't been able to tee it up together. So I know the time is limited now, but I feel like we might be able to find a window on an off day, especially it's been nice here, I know. So great to be with you. Have a great rest of the week. And thanks for the support. It was a great trip, and can't wait to get rolling here. See you soon.
Good stuff. There's Ken Wiebe. He's back at Wiebe's World on X, and of course, daily in your Winnipeg Free Press covering the Winnipeg Jets. Well, hey, great to have Ken back. Great to have a big ball game tonight. I think there might be a generic or two flowing at the ballpark. Hey, here's a big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, good stuff from Little Brown Jug. Well, listen, you saw the hockey players out there in the Little Brown Jug commercial. Hockey is back. The Jets are back. Training camp is starting this week, and listen, hockey at every level is getting going in earnest. Hockey tryouts happening, teams being formed, and hey, at the start of the season, if you've been playing hockey in Winnipeg for a while, you know that there's only one place that you need to go to get ready to drop the puck, and that, of course, is Royal Sports, with the biggest and best selection of hockey equipment for both skaters, for goaltenders, the biggest stick inventory, literally every single thing you need, from skates to skate sharpening, stick tape, you name it. It's at Royal Sports. Get down there today and get ready for hockey season at 750 Pembina Highway. And while you're at it, check out all the new NFL merchandise that's coming in, Jets merch for the start of the season, and of course, a great selection of Bomber gear as well, as we look forward to this big home against the Bombers and Elks and the upcoming CFL playoffs. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, for 40 years, your number one hockey superstore in town. Royal Sports Winnipeg on Instagram. Give them a follow for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And it was quite the night at Boston Pizza last night for Monday Night Football. Shout out. Well, I feel bad for anyone that left early thinking that the Eagles had it done. Thrilling comeback by the Falcons last night and Kirk Cousins. Boston Pizza is your spot for all of the NFL action this year. Monday nights, Thursday nights, and of course, all Sunday long. Pop into your local Boston Pizza during NFL games and take advantage of the great deals on their game day menu, including $7 pints of Bud and Bud Light, as well as your chance to win an exclusive trip to Vegas on Super Bowl weekend, NFL jerseys, BP prizes, and much more swag. When the NFL is on, it's on at Boston Pizza. And of course, if you're staying at home tonight but want the great taste of BP, order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, we've talked a lot of hockey, and we'll be focusing on that come training camp on the weekend. Of course, a big Bomber game. But tonight, on the Winnipeg sports scene, it is all about survival for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. 2 excruciatingly tight losses in Kane County. 6:30 tonight, it's Game 3 of the American Association Championship Series. And to tee it up, we welcome in American Association Executive of the Year, our pal Andrew Collier. Cash, it is great to have you back on the program, and it's great to still be talking about the Fish in the playoffs. How are you?
I am good. Great to be talking to you, too.
Hey, listen, I want to get to this series in a minute, but you've always been so kind with your time. It's been great working with you. Congratulations in order. And I know you'll probably want to thank some others. You were named yesterday the Executive of the Year in the American Association. It's been such a great year for the Goldeyes. Logan Watkins winning Manager of the Year, and another feather in the cap for you individually, but also the organization.
For sure. This it's an individual award to me, but it's an organization award, from the way Jamie, our clubhouse manager, best in the business, the way he looks after the visitors when they come to town, food and beverage. It's a team effort. We got such a great staff here, hardest working staff in in sports, and they just happen to name me, but it's really a Goldeyes organization award.
Well, listen, you for many years have done a great job, but part of that and part of being a leader is getting great people around you. And I will second that the people that are doing their thing and doing so many different things. One of the coolest things about working in, minor league baseball or hockey is, how many different things that your staff is involved in. And I'm sure it would take too long to go down the list of the contributions in so many different ways. But it is great for the organization, but also for you, who's been doing this for as long as you've had, and coming off Logan's Manager of the Year. It's been a great time for the Goldeyes. The only thing we would have liked to have had is a little bit better luck at the plate on the weekend. I know you were down in Chicago. I was listening to the games with Trevor and catching some of it on the stream. I mean, man, these were absolute nail biters. We've talked all year about how good the pitching's been for the Goldeyes. King County's got some arms as well, and this really is what playoff baseball is all about. Yeah,
their starters Saturday and Sunday were lights out. We just couldn't get anything to fall. We were hitting the ball, especially on Saturday, hitting the ball really hard right at people all game. Came down to the ninth inning, they walked it off, and then Landon Barassa just pitched his butt off in game 2. Joey Matulovic did the same in game 1, but game 2, Jack Fox, their starter, no hit us through 7 or 8, and then we got some life in the ninth, got the bases loaded with 1 out, and Miles Symington hit a bouncer to the mound, and the pitcher made a great play, stabbed it, threw it home, and threw it first for the double play to end the game. But the only run they got was on a bloop single to right field. It just kind of fell between the first baseman and the right fielder. That was the difference in the game, 1-0. And unfortunately, that was Landon's 4th 1-0 loss of the year. It's just, I don't know. We need some good things to go our way these next 3 days to get for Landon.
Yeah, you get him back on the bump and then spot him a dozen runs in the first inning for a change. I was just thinking back to, I guess I was at the ballpark four nights in 6 days as you finished one series and then advanced in another. Even right down to the final game of the last series, every single pitch was so tense. One of the other things that was so great about those games, and will continue tonight, has been the support of Goldeye fans and how people have gotten behind this team. And we really saw it as soon as the weather got nice, I think, after kind of a rough start weather-wise to the season, as we all know, the fans have been coming out, but holy smokes, have these crowds in the playoffs just been phenomenal. And I would imagine we're going to see another packed house tonight for the championship series.
Yeah, it's going to be full tonight. We're approaching 6,000 right now, and there still are some seats available. So if you're watching this, go to goldeyes.com, click on that ticket link, see what's available. It's highly likely we'll open up some standing room, and those tickets. So we have 4 patios. One of them is booked. So 3 of the other patios will be open for that standing room area. Plus craft beer corner is there. It'd be great to see a packed house tonight behind the Goldeyes. We need the support.
Fill us in on the matchup tonight. Who's on the bump, and what are you expecting or hoping to see from the fellas after they've traveled, had a day off, and are back in front of the home support?
You know what? I don't even know who's on the mound. I think it's Seabrook, but it could be Lamson. It might be something that Logan's keeping close to the vest right now.
I don't mind that. Both of those guys had big roles in that last series, and it was Lamson that had the 11 Ks in that last game. And he wasn't blowing guys away, but he was masterful. It speaks to the pitching staff for this team all year, that the fact that, going into game 3 of a championship series, you have those sort of options.
Yeah, the bullpen's been outstanding. The starters have been outstanding all year. Logan has a number of options to go to all throughout the game, whether it's late in the game or middle of the game. He's got some great options down there.
I'm sure you talked to him afterwards. What's been the mood around the team, knowing that they're still in this, but, just how incredibly close both of those games that could have gone either way were in the first 2 games back in Chicago.
This team's had confidence all the way through. When we lost game 1 in Sioux Falls, they came home and they just said, we got to win 2 games, and went out and did it. And then Fargo, after we lost game 2, and they got to the park the next day for game 3, they had confidence, and I think they still do now.
Well, 6:30 start tonight, and for this afternoon, we will be directing people that before they are gone to get to goldeyes.com. Normally I'd say you better make sure you've got them in your phone because you don't want to be in that long line. The fact of the matter is this is a championship series, and that long line for tickets is happening virtual right now as the seat place gets filled. But I would still say goldeyes.com, get those tickets, and 6:30 start tonight. And the plan, of course, Andrew, is to continue this championship series and do the same thing on Wednesday, and hopefully a game 5 for all the marbles. But it all starts tonight. Yeah,
got to get that one tonight. It's such a cliche, but one game at a time certainly applies in this case.
Yeah, and it's almost one run at a time and one out at a time right now with what just how tense all these playoff games have been. Listen, Andrew, congratulations again on the award to you and the entire organization. It's winning time tonight at Blue Cross Park. Good luck to the Goldeyes, and fingers crossed we'll be doing this again for the next couple days, teeing up more games in the championship series after a Fish win tonight.
That would be great. Thanks for your support all season, and hopefully we talk about Game 4 tomorrow.
Good stuff. We'll see you at the park tonight, 6:30, folks. Goldeyes.com for tickets. Goldeyes and Kane County in Game 3 of the American Association Championship Series. All right, great stuff with Andrew. Cannot wait for this game tonight, and fingers crossed we'll have another game tomorrow, and if we really get it rolling, championship deciding Game 5 on Thursday night, but the Fish got to win tonight. First pitch, 6:30. We'll see you there. Get your tickets, goldeyes.com ASAP, because it is going to be packed down at Blue Cross Park tonight. Cannot wait for it. Shout out to our friends at Breezy Bend. I cannot wait. Listen, this is a slow week in golf. Live Championship just finished with John Rahm winning it. They had a kind of a second-tier event on the PGA Tour, but the countdown is on for the President's Cup. Heading out there next week for it. I cannot wait. I'll be popping in on the show from Montreal and doing some content out there as well. Biggest tournament in Canadian golf history, biggest golf event in Canadian golf history. And if you want more information on that, check out the show last week. Had a great conversation with Winnipeg native Ryan Hart, who is the executive director of this event. Cannot wait for it. Well, they're already planning on the 2025 season over at Breezy Bend right now. The course could not be in better shape. All the improvements and the whole changes they've made in the last few years have come together with just an amazing course. But on top of that, a great practice facility, an amazing social scene, beautiful clubhouse, best patio around. If you're interested in finding out more on membership for the 2025 season, contact our pal Corey Johnson at the clubhouse or find out more online at breezybend.ca. We will get to our Assiniboia Downs picks in just a minute. We will also get to the Coolbet lines in just a second. But right now, for all of you in the chat, why not question of the day is this, and it comes off our conversation with Ken just a few minutes ago. Who do you expect to be the Jets' backup goalie in Game 1 of the regular season? Is it Kakinen or is it Eric Comrie? Let us know in the chat for the Why Not question of the day, brought to you by Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGilvery. Over to the Coolbet lines we go. And do not forget, a week today is the WST EST Lock Shop Poker Tournament, number 2. Everyone that joined us the first time, I think, had a great time. Remis maybe had the best time because he finished second. Matt Iwanek was 5th. Bounties are now added on both of their heads. Here you can see it. What you're going to do is just download, go to Coolbet, click on poker, download the poker app for your computer, and then you can go to tournaments, just search Lock Shop, enter, reserve your entry, and join us next Tuesday. And there is a $100 bounty on my head. There's a $100 bounty on Dusty's head. And now there's bounties on Matthew Iwanek and Michael Remis as well after their big performances last week. It's 20 euros, which is $30 to enter the tourney. As I said, Remo was a big winner last time. We'll be looking at him. I know a lot of you will be looking at me to get that $100 bounty on my head. But anyways, if you do like to play poker, online poker, join us a week today for the Lock Shop Poker Series with Winnipeg Sports Talk and Edmonton Sports Talk, September 24th. All right, to the CFL we go. Lines are out. Argos 7.5-point favorites against the Ticats. The Riders, who haven't won in 2 months, a road favorite. Yep, that's right. 2.5-point favorites in Calgary against the Stampeders. This, to me, must-win game for the Saskatchewan Roughriders if they want to be a playoff team. The Montreal Alouettes, 2.5-point favorites in Ottawa against the Red Blacks. And it's funny, Remo, this line, Winnipeg-Edmonton, opened up last night at 3.5. I texted Dusty. I said, I think this one's going to get a little tighter. He said the same thing on the show today. It was 3 when we did the Lock Shop earlier today. And now it is 2.5 for the Bombers. I wouldn't be surprised if this one comes even a little bit lower. I think the Bombers will end as a slight favorite in this game. But considering the way both of these teams have played, this really is a game where I think you ignore the point spread and just pick a money line winner who you think is going to win the game.
Yeah, both teams off the bye here, which I think makes it interesting. The Bombers' defense been very good. It's Trey Ford who's going to start. They announced before the bye that they were going to make the change, right? So
yeah, even though MBT had just thrown for like almost 500 yards.
Yeah, and he's, I think Bo was leading the league, but he's up there in passing, and he's been really good for them. They were losing earlier because of the defense. They seem to have fixed it up since Chris Jones was let go. This is the game of the week here, although Montreal-Ottawa could be pretty good too. But I mean, it's the main event of Saturday, which I am looking forward to seeing us.
Yeah, 6:00 start time. Very busy sports day in Winnipeg because FanFest is in the morning. The first preseason game is at night down at Canada Life Center. And, of course, you got the Bombers and Elks playing at 6 p.m. So many options for your sporting attention on Saturday. Moving over to the NFL, we got Patriots-Jets on Thursday for the Thursday nighter. And, I mean, both teams 1-1. I think the Patriots the Thursday night football people will be happy because the Patriots have looked far better than their predictions of being the worst team in the league coming into the year. And the Jets, of course, got their first win on the road against the Titans last week after a tough week 1 loss on Monday night. Jets -6.5. Couple of the other marquee games. I can't wait to see how the Eagles look coming out of that choke job last night against Atlanta. And they're going to New Orleans on a short week, playing the noon game against a team that is absolutely on fire, putting up more than 90 points in their first 2 games, including 44 on the road in Dallas, and really calling the dogs off in the second half. The Saints are 2.5-point favorites against the Eagles right now. Saints -154 on the money line, and Philly a +130. Speaking of teams that need a win, Remo, how about this Ravens-Cowboys game that's going on Sunday? Baltimore 0-2, Dallas 1-1 after getting waxed at home. Cowboys looking to be much better in front of their home fans, but have a tough team to do it. And the Dallas Cowboys are actually a slight home dog. 1-point underdogs, -102 on the money line. Baltimore at -115. We got the Rams and Niners also in that late slate. Rams decimated, although the Niners are too. Now, Connor's guy Deebo Samuel is out for a couple weeks. That's not helping things, but the Niners are still 7.5-point favorites in this game. And then you got a Sunday primetime game. Chiefs, 3.5-point favorites over the Falcons. And the Monday nighters, the Bills and Jags. Jags always play the Bills tight. Buffalo, 5.5 point favorites. Tune into the Lock Shop every day. Tuesday, we'll make our CFL picks, and then the big show Friday with our best bets for the weekend in the National Football League. It's all there at coolbet.com. If you haven't played there before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And of course, click on that poker app, download it, and join us for the second Lock Shop WST EST poker tourney a week today, Tuesday, September 24th. Remo, to the track we go. 4 more days of live racing and no blood last night. I did not gain anything on you, which makes tonight that much more important, as I'm about $25 back from you. How are you seeing the board for tonight?
I don't know. I got no confidence, Huss. I had a really hot July, and it just hasn't, the winners haven't been there for me lately, but I'm still going to give it a go. So I'm feeling, I think, better today than yesterday.
Beautiful. Well, let's get to it. 8 races tonight as well. And again, we're not done. Normally they'd be finished at this time of year. Live racing tomorrow, and then 2 days of live racing next week, Monday and Tuesday, to finish up the season. I'm starting on race number 2 tonight, and then I have 6, 7, and 8. What about you?
I got 2, 5, and 8.
All right. What do you got in 2?
I am going with to win horse 5, Diamond Concerto.
Gotta like Diamond Concerto in that one. I am rolling with a 2, 3, 4 triactor box. So I'm actually fading your pick. This could be a big one. You win, I lose, and the other way around. So 2 is Inano Caro, 3 Daddy's Rare Edition, and 4 our old favorite, Call the Cops. All right, I'm off until race 6. What do you have in 5?
I have, I don't have 5. I have 2, 4, 6, 8. I got 4.
Okay, what do you have in 4?
That was 5 was the number of horse that I had to win there. I am going with Starship Chewbacca in race 4 to win.
Number 6, Starship Chewbacca. Great name.
I've bet on this horse a couple times. It hasn't won. But this
It's due.
Finished. Yeah, it's due. This is a lot of seconds. I was like, all these seconds this year. It's like Phil Mickelson at a major. A lot of seconds.
Yeah.
Sorry,
before
he
won.
His
Masters. This will be his Masters win tonight. Race number 6. I am going with an exacta box of Blazing Bow and Exacting, a 1-6 exacta box.
All right, I'm going with Rousset to win, number 2.
Ooh, with Antonio Whitehall on the hill. I've got just a straight win bet in race number 7. $5 on the favorite, G. I'm Foxy. This horse, if you're out at the track tonight, has won its last 3 races, all stakes races. It's another stakes race tonight. Half a furlong longer than its win in the last time, but hard to stay away from G. I'm Foxy in race number 7 tonight. And that brings us to race 8.
Yes, race 8. I got an exacta box, 3, 5. I've got All Night and Commando's Last Dance.
Nice. I like those 2 horses as well. I'm going with a tractor box, 3, 5, 7. I've got All Night, Commando's Last Dance, and what I could call half of our chat these days, Brad's Sweetheart.
Oh, that's what you're picking?
Lovers of Lambeau, if you will. So 3, 5, 7 tonight. And if you are at the track and you're a Lambeau fan, maybe a little good karma, throw a toonie on number 7, Brad's Sweetheart. Those are our picks. It gets going at 7:30 tonight. Free admission, free parking. And as I mentioned, they're racing tomorrow as well as next Monday and Tuesday. Still time to get in for that amazing prime rib buffet. Call Assiniboia Downs 885-3330 to make reservations. Well, it's been a fun show. Ken sure was fired up to get back and get going today.
Yeah, I mean, he hadn't been on for a couple weeks here. He's got all these hot Jets takes loaded up in the chamber, ready to roll. You just pull the string like he's a talking doll, and he keeps going us.
Just let her rip. He let her rip today. It was fun. And I'll tell you what, it's just fun to be able to be talking about training camp now that it is here. If you popped in late, first segment of the program, we did get into some Nikolaj Ehlers comments, so you'll definitely want to check that out. And if you did pop in late, great stuff with Ken Wiebe, and of course Dan Fink kind of wrapping up the prospects tournament coming out of Penticton with his thoughts on many of the younger players that'll be challenging for Jet spots that very well may be the core of the Manitoba Moose lineup this year. But Remo, it's all about tonight. Fish, 6:30 down at the ballpark.
Yeah, tarps off. Going to be a huge crowd, over 6,000 cheering them on. A lot easier to come back from 2-0 than you think. They're just going to have to get some runs on the board. One run in 2 games, not going to get it done. The run prevention, pretty good, allowing 3 in 2 games. Big pitching duel. In this series, and we'll see, who Andrew's saying Logan Watkins holding his cards close to the vest. In an elimination game, everything is on the table. We'll see what they pull out tonight.
Yeah, well, listen, both of those guys will be ready to go tonight. Lampson was so good. He had 11 strikeouts in the game last week, to get them to the finals. So, tell you what, the bottom line is to get some hits, and it sure would be nice if they could get off to a nice start and maybe played a couple runs in the first or second inning and get that good feeling again at the plate right now, because the arms are certainly doing their job, but you got to score a few runs if you want to win. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the program, as well as more on upcoming Winnipeg Jets camp, as well as camps getting underway around the National Hockey League. And, of course, the latest on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are on the practice field today. Great to see Stanley Bryant back in, and find out a little bit more about the battle of the new quarterbacks and who will be backing up Zach Collaros when the team heads to Edmonton coming up on Saturday. Been a great show. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us today. Huge thanks to all the sponsors that make the program happen each and every day. And thank you to Dan Fink, Ken Wiebe, and of course, again, congratulations to the American Association Executive of the Year, Andrew Collier, who joined us earlier today. If you're at the ballpark tonight, you'd see us, say hi. We will be there cheering on the Fish, and we'll break it all down for you tomorrow, one day away from Jet training camp, on tomorrow's edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Go Fish, and have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.